Hi everyone, Mark Merrill with Firm. We're going to do a bit of a review this time as we get close to the end of 2024. Basically, talking about draining the swamp from one of our contributors at Hillsdale College in connection with one of our recent programs on consultants and analysts and the left-wing radicals and how they're still not happy. Mainstream media and legacy old TV networks for the longest time have taken the former op-ed section of the national, state, or local newspaper and turned it into a business or journalism part-time job of so-called knowledge and facts, which are opinions really, and push this information overflow into the general American population as news fair and balanced, or maybe more like news the way America ought to be, should be. Well, we got down and dirty in the Consultants and Analysts program, folks. Real common sense like as to whether consultants and analysts present their views and opinions on topics of the day's news, and as to whether it's in a format that either ruins or helps the overall U.S. population to really comprehend and understand what the hell are these experts, so-called, talking about. Well, the president, CEO of Hillsdale College, Larry Arnn, came up with an article in the last 30 days. Drain the swamp. Get much clearer than that, can we? A few excerpts from Mr. Arnn's publication in November. The November election is the product of a decades-long struggle in American politics that's intensified since 2016. The election produced a victory for the man who caused the intensification, Donald Trump, and caused it by convincing a people jaded from broken promises that he would drain the swamp. The battle begins now. What will it be like? Well, there's so many problems. The border, crime, inflation, education, war, Ukraine, China, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, debt stacked to the far reaches of a SpaceX mission. What matters the most? What takes priority? Well, look at what it's done to America, says President Arnn, since the swamp began to fill in the 30s and especially in the 1960s. Somehow, we've come to think that the fruited plains that we eventually stretched out to in California, Oregon, and Washington State have come to think that bearing more fruit was only useful to the government. We, the people, were left in limbo, or in the dark. We, as a people, must farm, mine, travel, and work as we please. We must act on our own initiative and by our own efforts, he says. We need resources to live on and use, readily available to anyone who wants to work. That's the spirit of a free people. Today, after more than 100 years of trying, the weakness of the progressive regime becomes apparent. It undermines the principle of consent of the governed. Got that? It vaunts expertise and professionalism over politics and the principle of representation. Over time, it's become unable to hide its contempt for American citizens. Its leaders have called them deplorables and worse. It seeks to take children from their parents and prosecutes parents if they complain. It seeks to restrict speech to assertions or assertions. It seeks to restrict speech to assertions that enjoy its sanction. President Trump proposes the creation of a Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, headed by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. The DOGE will work as an advisory group outside the government to find cheaper and better ways to do things or not to do things. It'll work with the Office of Management and Budget, Trump's party controls both houses of Congress by narrow margins, but will they pass legislation to abolish a department? We'll need the wisdom of Winston Churchill, concludes Mr. Arnn, Professor and President Arnn. The wisdom of Winston Churchill, born 150 years ago, on these matters. Churchill wrote, "One of the greatest reasons for avoiding war is that it is destructive to liberty, but we must not be led into adopting for ourselves the evils of war in time of peace upon any pretext whatever." The word civilization means not only peace by the non-regimentation of the people, such as is required in war. Civilization means that officials and authorities, whether uniformed or not, whether armed or not, are made to realize that they are servants and not masters. No socialist government conducting the entire life and industry of the country could afford to allow free, sharp, or violently worded expressions of public discontent. They would have to fall back on some form of Gestapo, no doubt very humanely directed in the first instance, and then this would nip opinion in the bud. It would also stop criticism as it reared its head and would gather all the power to the Supreme Party and the party leaders, rising like stately pinnacles above their vast bureaucracies of civil servants, no longer servants, no longer civil. And where would the ordinary simple folk, common folk, as they like to call them in America, where would they be once the naughty organism had them in its grip? Thank you, President Arnn. Good news, though, folks, on the horizon, as you see already, and you probably already know. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, announced that we have a budget stripped from 1,000 pages down to 118. What does that mean before the Senate votes on it? It'll stop funding a lot of pork barrel stuff. Needless. The deflectocrats seem to think it's important. And will help Republicans also bridge the gap until the party takes control of Congress and the White House in January. The House passed that bipartisan deal by a vote of 366 to 34. Republicans counted for all the 34 no votes, by the way. Johnson said the legislation covers government funding through March, plus disaster relief aid to farmers, but not a suspension of the federal debt ceiling that President Trump wants. Johnson said he spoke with Trump before the vote and after. He knew exactly what they were going to do, meaning the Republicans, and why. This is a good outcome for the country. Democrats are claiming, however, victory, given that the measure wouldn't have passed the Republican-controlled chamber without their help. From Mr. Voice of Reason, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat of New York. Of course, he goes right to the media. Spoke to reporters saying, House Democrats have successfully stopped extreme MAGA Republicans from shutting down the government, crashing the economy, and hurting working-class Americans all across the land. But conservative Representative Chip Roy of Texas, a Republican, voted against the bill on December 20th and objected to the initial legislation unveiled earlier in the week. He said progress was made, but not enough for him to okay the bill, while Trump has threatened to back a GOP challenger in the Republican primary when Roy runs for re-election in 2026. Careful with your words, Republicans, you rhinos out there. In the meantime, folks, stay safe, peace to all in your family, and check us out all the time. Our podcasts on rumble.com/fairnessmedia1 and email us at fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. Peace to all.